Thank you, everybody, for coming on this wonderful, increasingly sunny morning to the Ballantyne Street House by Fooman Architects. This is the first episode of this season 1 of The Naked Architect, and today we'll be exploring some behind-the-scenes insights into what it's like to work with an architect and to commission and work with a residential architect, and what you as maybe potential clients might get out and contribute to that process. I'm curious to start with, a then and a now question for Alyssa and Patrick about what your expectations were at the beginning of the process and how you now think about those expectations. Did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed it? Was it totally different to what you expected?
I don't think we really had a clue what we were doing. So I guess we had an expectation that they would help to design a house and deliver plans and help us build a house. Yeah. But I don't think we really had a clue what we were doing. And I think once you've sort of been involved in doing a big renovation like this once, you probably do it better the second time. But no, I don't really know exactly.
I think our expectation was we had a fairly clear idea about what we wanted. When we bought this house, it was very much, it filled all of our desires for what we wanted, north-facing backyard, all of those things. So we did go to Joe and Jamie with like a funny little sketch of what we thought we wanted there.
It was really good.
And so in employing an architect, we wanted someone who would take that, and there were very specific things that we wanted. So we wanted an architect who would listen to those things and not try and sway us any way away from those things. And
can you maybe elaborate on that? What sort of things?
Well, the environmental stuff was really big for both of us, there were certain things like Pat really wanted a courtyard, and there were things, a list of things that we really wanted. Like we really wanted wood to be a bit of a feature, and so we and also I think we have a very specific kind of style in the interiors that we like, which is very much the mid-century sort of look, and we didn't want someone who was going to sway us away from something that we felt like was the home that we wanted.
And I guess we wanted that translation of our ideas into something that was going to be nice and actually worked, and we were well aware that we had no practical skills to do that.
Yeah.
And looking at some of the features of the little sketch we did do, we just got an app on the iPad that enabled you to kind of do your own designing, and a lot of it was pretty silly, but the courtyard was there, the entrance down the side, exactly. And the carport and all those sorts of things, that was central to what we were going to do. We didn't have the bedroom out the back, which was one of the best additions.
And when you were searching for architects in the beginning, did you feel that Joe and Jamie's portfolio resonated with those ideas, or how did you make the decision in the end?
So Joe and Jamie didn't have a lot of residential projects when we first approached them, but the few that they did have were all different, and that we met with 3 architects, and the reason that one of the main reasons we went with Joe and Jamie was the fact that the couple of houses that they had were both beautifully designed houses, but they were different, and we thought that was an indication that they had listened to their clients and not just done a house in a style that they wanted. And so that was one of the big deciding factors for us in going with them.
I would say, like, on that point, clients have a lot of great ideas, and we love it when they do, and we'll put them straight into our project because we want to reflect the client's desires. But clients have a lot of bad ideas that they feel really strongly about.
It's hard to navigate.
So we're not going to just adopt them. We try to work out what it is that they like about that, or get to the root of it, and then try to solve it in a better way. So it doesn't always, because they were good ideas that they're in, you know. It doesn't always work that smoothly.
That's right. Yeah, you guys were really good.
The process is a long one. Could you maybe elaborate from?
I just had that query. Actually, then somebody was looking at next door, and I was going through our kind of history, and I worked out that it spanned over 3 years, but because we stopped for Christmas and New Year each time, that extends it by months. It was a smart thing to do though, because if we'd started building, around middle end of the year, there's always a very large break over Christmas and New Year. And there's a slow uptake in the new year. People don't really get started until Feb. So we didn't actually start on site until Feb, because then you can hit it hard.
It's bad to have a Christmas deadline. We had one, but we recommend against it.
And so over that time, maybe if you could talk from both ends, how the collaboration works. So you felt like these guys, Joe and Jamie, were really open to listening to you. How did that evolve across the way as you got into more and more detail?
Well, I think it kept going that way. We'd have ideas, and they would take our ideas and interpret them, and if they were bad ideas, they'd explain why. And it was, and everything just kept going in that same way, I think.
It's funny, we produce these. We provide these with to all our clients, not in A3, and it shows the process. But what was interesting in this project was, that's a very early design proposal. So the plan comes first, and then we work in 3D immediately. And then from there, it evolved into that, and it's incredible how it's the same. How things just evolved in this project, and then ultimately, when it was finished, that's how it looked. So in this project, it doesn't always work as tidily as this. It was a very clear linear evolution.
Yeah, this is the principle though. This is generally how we work.
Yeah, the idea. So at the beginning, we try to avoid talking about the timber.
Right at the start.
Yeah, and the finishes, even though we're thinking about them.
Yeah, that said, we are thinking about them. We get the clients to start Pinterest boards, which is really, really easy.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, and that gives us an idea. We can look at the whole board. We don't even have to look at individual images. You can look at the whole thing, and it's a palette. And it just shows us the kind of feel, like it can be an emotional look. That's really useful. And then we also have a client checklist, which we've printed out as well if anybody wants to have a look.
Yeah,
it's quite an extensive document, an Excel spreadsheet. It just goes through each room and goes down into quite small detail. And we just get our clients to fill that out very early on, and we go back and forward with that and keep referring to it as we go.
So like in the kitchen, do you have a rice cooker? Do you want that on your island bench, or do you want it concealed? How many Thermomixes do you intend on? things like that. And some people love filling this out. Other people get really frustrated and get halfway through and go, I'm done. So then
the rest is half of it's blank.
But we fill it out because it's something we keep referring to all the way through.
Yeah. And it comes from conversations that we have, like initial conversations, and then as we go through sketch design, we'll learn things that our clients will be talking about that may not have specifically written down, and we'll add it to that checklist because it just helps the process.
There are so many questions that people kind of assume that things are simple. You do a bedroom robe, but when you start thinking about it, you do have specific requirements to do with that robe, and until you ask those questions,
You've got no idea.
yeah, you never, you know. And every time we have a fireplace, our client assumes that we know that it's a natural wood-fired thing, but other times people just assume that
it's going to be gas.
It's going to be gas because it's so much easier, and it's really polarizing. If we don't ask, then we can make a terrible mistake. So we ask at the beginning, so that when we do come with these initial things, there's no shock and it feels natural and right.
Yeah.
So how regularly did Joe and Jamie seek your input in the process?
I mean, it was a slowish process. I mean, I don't think, we were happy to let things evolve. And I think there were sort of a series of points where we were presented with an initial series of two main ideas, which, as you pointed out, was unusual because you had one option with two stories and one, so with basically that section on the roof as opposed to there. And we said, no, we don't want to go up. And then we moved on. And so you'd present us with ideas and we'd sort of take steps of refining those ideas, refining around size, refining around cost, refining around sort of practicalities and what we thought was important. I don't know, I mean, it's sort of, I can't remember exactly. It was over 3 years.
Yeah,
and that was,
yeah.
So you're saying the 3 years was from you
First
initially had
contact
contact
to end of
build, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And I think, one of the architects we approached, said, oh, look, what we do is we get started and, 6 months' time, we want to be starting to do the work, the building should start. And we didn't want to do that, and we weren't in that much of a rush. And I think it was actually quite good because there was quite a lot of refinement along the way, and although, as Jamie's pointed out, the initial idea is essentially the finished product, has actually been quite highly refined. And I think the idea for this laundry / mudroom / walk-in pantry, so we sort of wanted all three of those things, and the idea to make it all one was a relatively late idea.
Originally it was separate, wasn't it? And then
We
we
started out with them as separate rooms.
Yeah,
that
we
was the
did.
brief.
Yeah.
And then we refined it. And just made
and
it
that's
into
one of the
its
best things
space.
about the house. So if we had have rushed into it, we wouldn't have ended up with that.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
We find clients typically want to draw out the design stage for as long as physically possible, and then they want to move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
So this is a question for Joe and Jamie. What sort of qualities do you look for in the ideal client?
Oh, that's
And
a
out of
hard
10,
question.
How do
None
you
of these
sort
guys
of-
right. Okay, let's
Easy
Yeah, you don't have to
7, like.
look, I've got no issue with saying you guys are 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, there's no ideal, is there? Because
It's about
we
a
were
relationship
excited. Like
as well.
That's true. I mean, we were excited initially because these guys said they wanted a house without surplus, with great green credentials.
Yeah,
we're
and
like,
that for us
that's
is like
great.
the best
Yeah,
project
that
ever.
resonates. But if somebody else comes and says we want something beautiful, then we're like, well.
Yeah,
that
well, that's
sounds
great
cool.
too.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And we want to spend loads of money. We're like, all right,
Yeah.
great.
I'm sure it'll be great when it happens.
Yeah, so we find, I guess there's lots of elements that we can be excited.
Yeah.
Maybe
about
clear
clients
direction.
who are
Clear
really,
direction.
Yeah, so clients
clear
who are
direction's
really
good.
clear on what they want, as opposed to
good.
clients who are really open to suggestion. Is there benefits one way or the other?
I don't know.
We do have to start with a brief. Like, you need to drill down into the rooms and what you want to use them for. That's one thing that's quite hard, is when clients have fixed ideas on the rooms and they don't, because as we were saying about this room, which is 3 rooms really, some clients can you can hit a brick wall and they're like, no, I need my laundry and I need my pantry. It has to be a walk-in pantry, all that kind of stuff. But if you are a bit more
Receptive.
open to ideas, then you can get really great results.
Yeah, but being receptive is
Yeah.
ideal. That's a must. Being receptive to other ideas and open is something that Joe and I think we are.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's
Both
important.
sides has to be.
And I think we like direction. I think so.
Yeah.
As a
no,
general
direction
rule.
is good.
But I think we might be a bit feel a bit lost if somebody said just
Go for it.
Yeah, just go for it.
I don't think
Completely.
anyone really would do that.
No, don't think
No,
so.
We don't fear really.
Yeah, yeah. But that said, direction is great, but then also being open and understanding that we, I guess, have reasons and professional experience that we're going to suggest something for a very specific reason. And the other question, the other thing is that if you ask for more clarification, that's fine too. So always ask. You know, there's no issue if you don't understand something or you don't get it the first time. You can ask and ask and ask.
And Patrick and Alyssa, how do you feel when you look around the house? What of your DNA is in it? Do you feel?
I think loads. I
Yeah,
feel.
it's
I
our
think
house. Yeah,
we
we feel it's
feel like
absolutely our
this is
house.
our house. That's, things like we saw a design of a house years ago before we even bought this house, where there was a bookshelf separating a lounge from a dining, and we fell in love with that idea, and that's something that we told these guys right from the beginning and then this has all kind of evolved, and it's such a beautiful feature of the house that we just adore. And it's I know these guys looked at our furniture and things like that, and the whole thing just works for us, and it has felt like our house as soon as we moved in. So yeah.
We're not going to take credit for all the design ideas in this sense, but I think that it is all the sort of final finished product. It's just what we would have wanted, and the essence of it is sort of preserving the original Edwardian house and then doing something really nice and modern which doesn't detract from it. They completely got and did really nicely, and I had some of my initial ideas which they ignored, and they were quite right to ignore. And I don't like a brand new shiny box stuck on the side of an old house, and this isn't what they've done. It's sort of hidden at the back. So I think they all the ideas we had have sort of been translated really fantastically well.
I think also the process during the build was so positive that gives it a good energy from the outset.
Yeah.
There was no tension through that build.
We had amazing
one minor
builders
issue.
as well,
Yeah.
Oh,
And that was that's always. But no, we had absolutely
over that.
Yeah. We had fantastic builders, and I think we had builders who were recommended by the architects. So the architects already had a relationship with the builder, and that just meant that there was easy communication.
Yeah. And trust.
And we had a builder who. So I can't remember who described him as being someone who was really an architect who became a builder instead.
Ian, I reckon he has the patience. That's my view. He would be good, but no patience.
No, that's probably true.
And was there anything? Were there any disagreements between you guys? At any step of the way, was there any difficulty in letting go of some of those things that you were hoping to achieve early on, Patrick?
No. I think as soon as we saw what they wanted to do, we completely agreed.
You initially weren't sure about the bedroom at the back idea, but Jamie sort of talked us into it by saying your kids are only primary school age for a short amount of time, and then you've got these loud teenagers.
Exactly.
And we are so glad that we listened to that advice, because this is just the best part of the house. It's beautiful.
I mean, there are a series. I think Alyssa was much. There are certain things. Is a walk-in wardrobe really necessary? The answer is actually yes. I've decided, having spent 45 years without one, I've now decided that it's fantastic. And so there are a whole lot of things where Joe and Jamie just said, look, we think it's really good, you're really going to appreciate it, it's really worth it. And they were right, and so we know that was great.
I remember we have minor
details.
Yeah, minor details,
Yeah.
which there was a bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
But I never felt like we're butting heads.
No.
Because once everyone explained their position, I think we always came. Don't you feel?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I remember in particular one that's in my mind was the tiling in that bathroom.
Yeah.
We usually like to just tile our walls because it just feels great. It's finished and it's not a huge cost difference. But Pat just didn't want to tile one of the walls because it just didn't need to happen.
It didn't need to be tiled.
And you asked us, behind the tiles, is there another finish? And we said, you line it, then you tile it. And then that didn't make sense to you because you're doubling up on something that wasn't necessary and it was surplus. So that made perfect sense. That was the brief from the outset. So it's a small detail, but, it's indicative.
And I think all those little things actually really matter too, partly in the way it looks at the finish, but you also have to make a decision about what you want to spend your money on, and a few $1,000s when you do a renovation like this doesn't seem like much, but there's 20 or 30 a few $1,000s that you have to think about, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
so,
you can just keep it. You don't need to spend it elsewhere. You can just keep
no.
that.
Although you often do. Particularly when you're renovating a run-down old house.
Yeah.
So the checklist that you mentioned before, Jamie, is that the client brief that kicks the whole project off?
Yeah. That's our first conversation.
And so you covered some things like, fireplace and rice cookers and that sort of thing. What are some of the big picture things that document wants to cover?
There's those words that we...
Yeah, that's something that we've sort of developed over time that we didn't use with you guys. We didn't have that kind of in our checklist, but it was we've got a bunch of words that we put into the checklist, and we ask our clients to circle the words that mean that they want to reflect their home. And then again, that's going back to that Pinterest board and how I said it can be a kind of a bit of a feeling. That helps.
So the words they're words like glamorous or relaxed or cool or humble, and you can...
Or luxurious.
Luxurious. Luxury for some people is yes, other people it's
no.
It's
not
no.
Into,
I'm into utility. And sometimes two of these things can make sense together, or a house is big enough to incorporate
both. Yeah.
To incorporate both. So we've gone a bit more explicit on that being in the checklist. Previously we worked those things out on our own through the Pinterest and through talking.
Yeah.
And it does come through, the characters come through, and we see the way that they live currently.
Yep. I mean, we still get that information from discussions and Pinterest and all that kind of stuff. And
and we learn so much from the clients.
Yeah.
So that checklist, after we've completed it, there's always ideas that you guys have incorporated that we add to our standard now. So each project we just keep adding to it based on our experience from the previous. Our template keeps changing.
Yeah.
And the way you communicate, so you've mentioned that you've got some written communication back and forth. There are meetings that happen, and then there's also ideas like Pinterest boards. Is that... can you maybe just elaborate on how those different elements can combine to give you a picture of what your clients want, and then also, I guess, from your point of view, how you use them to give your architects an idea, which is the most important bit, how does it all connect?
I think for us, it's the whole sum of it. It's all of those things, and that's why the initial stage, there's a lot of work involved in just getting to know you guys, getting to understand how you work, how your family works, what kind of things you like. There's so much happening without anything actually being produced, and that all has to happen and get fed into our brains before we can actually
And that's
come up
before
with
we've even thought about the site.
Yeah.
So Joe and I, we spend time here, especially doing that measure. So we don't give that measure to a third party. We come here and we do it ourselves and spend the full day here. And that's when we sort of look around and have an opportunity to work out the constraints and the opportunities on the site too.
Yeah.
And from your point of view?
Well, I think the Pinterest board was really helpful for... well, actually, I think it was mostly me. But then we sat down so I spent a lot of time sort of pinning things of different houses and images.
I didn't do anything on the Pinterest board, but we looked at it together.
But then we sat down together and we then went through and deleted the things that we didn't both agree on and that we didn't both like, and then we were able to give these guys, I guess it's a mood board of, of things that we like. So that was a good way for us to start thinking about how we wanted the house to look. because we'd only really thought about how we wanted, what rooms we wanted, and then
and Joe and Jamie would then take those ideas, and I think there's some samples over there. So they would come and go, well, we're thinking about this material for this thing, we're thinking about this or that, and we got to see some of the houses they did, and they showed us this ceiling in one of the houses and explained why they thought this was important. And so they actually then really gave us concrete examples. So we've seen your thoughts, and these are the things we think which reflect your thoughts. You know, and then we'd have ideas. So we'd always wanted these beams, and I started thinking, I really want these glue lamp beams, and I said, what about this? You know, there are good reasons to pursue this, and so Joe and Jamie looked into it, and we talked a bit about it. So there was a lot of going back and forth, but they would present us with particular ideas that they thought spoke to what we were doing.
I mean, you guys generally agreed too, so that's useful. Actually, out of a client, that's useful.
we tend to have the same
between the two of us.
Because otherwise we have to run a point system. Like, you get that one.
There were a couple of things we
Unfortunately, you get
disagreed
that
on, but mostly
they take time. They just take longer.
And I think different things are more or less important for Alyssa and I. There are certain things were more important to Alyssa, and she would say, well, no, I think this is important, this is the way we should do it. It's not to say that I didn't have an opinion or wasn't involved in the decision making about any of the tiles in the house, but I was pretty happy to leave it up to Alyssa. She presented me with the options that she discussed with Joe, I think, in particular, and yep, that's fine. So you know, I didn't care too much about tiles.
It's really funny because some of our clients go, you take care of that, it's fine, I trust you, but they don't. They don't. Because there's so much at stake.
Well, I mean, you know, when it came
important.
to the fittings, all the taps and those sorts of things, and you just, we did trust you with that, and you said, we have experience with these, we think they're effective, we think it fits your house. And we had a look and went, yep, good, let's move on. We didn't actually care that much.
That's being a good client too. I don't need to sit on every toilet in this with my client.
Actually, I can remember these guys suggested that we would spend a day going and looking at all of those kind of fittings and stuff, and Pat and I just went, no. Just tell us what's good, that's fine. Because those things weren't important to us. Really. And we knew that these guys had a good eye for that stuff, so you know, my sink's fine, my tap's fine. But I remember filling in the checklist and looking at it and feeling daunted, oh my God, we have to. But I remember us doing that, and it did make us think about the details and exactly what cupboard space do you need in your laundry, what do you know. All of those things, and that was really helpful doing the checklist.
Was it a bit cathartic, forcing you to actually articulate what it is that you want?
It was, because I think we hadn't really gotten to that sort of thinking yet.
And also, I mean, you don't, coming back to my first statement, you don't really have a clue. You don't really, and also I think I went into this a bit having not been in a situation like this where you just adapt yourself to the house as opposed to actually adapting the house to you. And that's something that Joe and Jamie kind of taught us about. It's like, well, no, this is your house and you make it the way you want, and things like you want a cupboard this size or you want to be able to put this in your cupboard, you can do that, we can make that happen. You know?
That's one thing that I'm not that fond of in clients is when they only are concerned with resale. Because we want to design for a person, and we don't want to design for resale.
And we maintain that if it suits you really well, there'll be others.
Somebody else who wants it as well.
And if not, they'll make changes. People aren't so bereft of creativity that they walk into a home and think,
"Oh, no.
Yeah, that's the wrong. That cupboard's
the wrong colour.
Yeah,
I'm out.
I'm out.
I like that idea, Patrick. I've never heard it articulated in that way before, that typically the way we engage with the houses that we live in is we adapt ourselves to them. And when you work with an architect, you can you have the sort of a
Opportunity.
singular opportunity to do it the other way around. Yeah, that's quite exciting.
Yeah.
Everyone should write that down.
I think there are little things which are, so the shed out there has my bikes, and I ride my bike to work every day. I come home, I go through that gate, I can lock that gate, I go into that shed and I can hang up my bike and I can come inside and I can dump my bike shoes and my wet clothes of late in the laundry and go into the house, and that's perfect for me. That's great, and it's very simple, but it works fantastically well. And of course the kids can do that too as they get older and
Exactly.
more independent. They can come in and dump their stuff, and and it just makes life easy for us.
I feel like our clients forever thank and curse us for a whole range of decisions and arguments. Like the one PowerPoint that might not be where we discussed it was going to be because it was going to be hideous, but they can't put their toaster in, and they will call me.
These
They
things
keep
happen.
resonating, these choices.
Yeah, but they forget about all the really conveniently located PowerPoints.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You take it for granted.
The light switch for this courtyard that's, as you come in through the gate and in there, I can't remember if we discussed that or not, but every time I wander in and flick the light on, that's great, I'm really glad. It's simple and it's obvious, but it's great, and I wouldn't have thought of it.
Yeah.
Alyssa and Patrick, can you maybe talk about one or more parts of the house that have been most surprising and most delightful that you would never have come up with on your own?
I think our bedroom being out there was, because that wasn't, our plan was just to have our bedroom sort of on the back here with leading on from the kids' bedrooms. And that room has just been, it's just delightful. It's just such, I've never spent so much time in my bedroom before. Like it's just, and we've both had some health things this year that have meant that we've had to recuperate at home, and that has just been just perfect. It's been, so it is the loveliest room in the house, and it's ours. Like we've got 3 noisy kids, but we have, most of the time we have a space. But they even love being there as well.
The younger two often close the door and play around in there, so it's not actually our space. But
But it feels like it could be.
yeah, one day when they don't want to talk to us anymore. So.
And you can lie in bed there and read the newspaper, and you can see Pat's beautiful garden, and it's beautiful. I think.
That sounds very civilised.
Yeah.
I have 2 young kids, so sitting
Yeah,
in bed and reading
it doesn't
newspaper,
happen
that
very
doesn't
often, I have to say.
No.
What's funny is it looks just like the drawings, right? So we do the 3D and we send perspectives and movies to these guys. So it gets built and it looks like you expect, but you don't always envisage every way that you're going to use it. So I think that's what you discover once you're in there.
Yep.